Well, now, thanks for staying on the program. Deregulation of fuel pricing would not start today, Monday, June 15, 2015, as initially planned. This is because the legal process that should culminate into this is yet to be completed. Importers and marketers of petroleum products were to begin setting their own prices instead of the National Petroleum Authority. This is expected to engender competition in pricing among the various oil marketing companies to the benefit of consumers. However, some experts have expressed fears this might not be the case, as prices could go up substantially in some instances. Now let's get an understanding of what this deregulation encompasses. Joining me now is Joy Business editor Emmanuel Ejie. He's joined me over the telephone. Hello, Ima.
Hi.
Help us understand what consumers should know about deregulation of fuel pricing.
Well, basically, it has to do with the establishment of the prices they pay at the pumps. And like you know, over the years, the National Petroleum Authority has been setting the prices, or you can say that has been influencing the price. And that's how come you usually would have the same prices at every fuel station, every fuel service station that you find yourself. This is a way to ensure that, the dealers do not necessarily, exploit consumers. And so it's been like that over the years. Now, what's happening is that there have been concerns because government has always been, influencing the prices with the NPA setting it and all that. There has been the concern about the subsidies and all that piling up, and government is unable to. So one of the suggestions that have come up is to deregulate the petroleum sector to ensure that the issue of subsidy is actually dealt with, and that means that government is no more going to be stepping in, and it's going to leave it to the dealers to set their own prices. So what's going to happen is that when it starts, you're going to have prices differ from station to station. So just like you have in other industries where you go and you would have one commodity selling at this price, you go to another outlet, and then you'll be selling at a different price for competition's sake and all that. That's what's expected to happen, all things being equal. Yeah.
Well, now we understand that contrary to the initial announcement that this was going to take place today, it's not going to happen because of some legal processes. Give us an understanding of that too.
Okay, so, stakeholders have been meeting as part of the process to come up with the modalities for the implementation of this policy, and they finalized it last week, and it was forwarded to the Attorney General. So the Attorney General was supposed to give its approval to this, but as we speak, our sources indicate that this is yet to happen. And even after the Attorney General's approval, we would have to be forwarded to Parliament, for the necessary approval as well before the policy can be implemented. And as we speak, this hasn't happened. Now, speaking to our sources we were told that this is rather likely to happen over a number of days. And so looking at the turn of events, it's rather likely to be implemented from the next review. That's the next window for the review. That would have been in 2 weeks' time. And this would be sometime in July. So maybe we should be looking at July 1 for the implementation.
Now, Imran, I'm going to have you hold the line just for a while. We can now speak with Dr. Charles Rekubrobe, who is Executive Director for GIPO. You're welcome to the program, Dr. Rekubrobe.
Good morning, community.
Very well. Now, are you surprised this didn't take effect today?
No, I wouldn't say I'm surprised, because I think last week I raised a red flag about the legal basis of this whole action. Let's be from the outset say that deregulation is very good, but it's taking too long. I mean, it's been on the table for 10 years, but like everything else, was being rushed through without due care and attention. So that is the problem. Everything we do in this country, whether it's good or it's bad or it's indifferent, must be within the laws of the land. So that I'm surprised that your economics editor seems to know so much, because one of the things that we do not have is clarity on how this is going to happen, when it will happen, how it will happen. And then suddenly somebody said, from June 15, we are going to do this. You remember that these things have happened with the insurance industry. It's happened with introduction of seatbelts. When you try to force something without enough public education and public consultation, you're going to get it come back into your face with a very hard knock. So it's important that all of us understand what we think is good and desirable. In the pricing of petroleum products, there are certain social concerns which, if we do not address, will create inequality in this country. We have a uniform pricing policy in this country, for example. Petrol that you buy in Accra costs the same as petrol that you buy in Bokatanga. It doesn't apply with cement that you buy in Accra and cement that you buy in Bokatanga. That is a completely free market. Now, can you imagine a situation where rural areas or petrol OMC decide that, well, we can get more money in Accra, so we'll sell in Accra and we'll put our prices in the rural areas and that kind of stuff. There's also social support for things like fishermen with premixed fuel. And so if you really want to treat petroleum like any other commodity, then all those constraints and built-in measures which promote social equity and support for the rural areas need to be looked at and addressed before you can put out such a policy. Before I actually wrote my piece, I spoke to George Yafi from Multimedia. I asked him a series of questions. And essentially, he didn't know what the whole thing was about in terms of the details of it. And I said, well, if George Yafi doesn't know, then I'm sure 3/4 of Ghana or 90% of Ghana would not know. So let me restate again. I am for deregulation, but there are a whole lot of issues that we must deal with.
One of those issues you want us to deal with is finding a common point between the deregulation Act that was passed in 2005 and the legal instrument that puts pricing in the hands.
No, there was no Deregulation Act passed in 2005. The MPA Act was passed in 2005. There's an LI which was passed in 2012, which sets the basis for the pricing of petroleum products. In that LI, it is stated categorically that uniform prices shall apply everywhere in this country. That is the biggest problem you have when you're trying to well, it doesn't matter what. This is the law. So for you to actually liberalize, you need to change that law.
Indeed. So now that the process has been put on hold, what are you expecting the stakeholders to do at this point?
Well, I think what you need to do is to bring the law into contention with what is intended. I mean, this country used to have Ghana Telecom long before we had 5 or 6 telcos. Now, what has happened? We've transferred from a monopoly to 6 competing telcos, all free you song and bells and various promotions. And that is the kind of transition we need to go through to make sure that you don't have freedom with one high tide behind your back. Because all the things which have attracted special issues to do with petroleum products need to be addressed. Don't forget, Kamini, and I'm sure you shop as well as everybody else, the price of petrol drives the cost of living in this country.
Absolutely.
And therefore, if you don't get it right, you may make the poor poorer, because if I live in Tamale or Bolga, I may have to pay more. You may make things unacceptable. By the way, it's not even true that petroleum products are subsidized. They are not. There is a specific problem to do with foreign exchange inability to be stable, which is affecting how much the BDCs pay when they import and when they pay. You know, when you want to import products, you do so at one stage in which you contract, and then you probably have about 90 days or so to pay. Now, in those 90 days, the CD could lose a lot of its value. That difference is what they call under recovery. That is the biggest problem that they are faced now. So even if you want to liberalize the petroleum industry, unless you address that problem specifically, all that will happen is that there will be a pass-through straight away to the consumer, and that will put up petrol prices. So all the bottlenecks which actually allow for a proper free trade, that needs to be removed. And that is all that I have asked for. That let's be very clear that, you know, people are getting fed up with increasing prices which are done without explanation or consultation. And that message of it will go down is not true. It may go down. You know, there are about 10 taxes on petroleum products alone. There are about 8 margins. If you want people to compete, don't prescribe things for them. Don't say this margin should fetch that, that margin should fetch that. Then where is the competition? You need to give them the room to do what they want to do with their own imagination and determine the price.
In other words, there's a conflict in what the law says we should do and what the NPA wants to do now.
No, there's no conflict. At the moment, you know, and in fact, I was one of 3 authors who established the petroleum price build-up. It's always been that petroleum pricing has been done by government. The NPA is part of government. It's a public institution. And it's always been that you actually determine and set prices and applicable taxes, the road fund, energy fund, toll recovery draft, which is 15 years old when it should have been done in 4. So it is the transition from a state determination and control of pricing into the full liberalized regime.
Dr. Ekube, I guess this is what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Should we go ahead with deregulation? Will the OMC still use the formula in the LI?
No, because the LI formula is inconsistent because it arrives at a point. I mean, for example, fuel market margin, so-called depot margin. You know, if you stipulate all of these things, then you give no room for, if you like, the OMC or the other players to use their own kind of sense of adventure and fun to be able to decide, oh, I'm playing with 100 cities. This is how I'll do it. You know, so you cannot say you want to liberalize and then tie everybody's hand, you know, by stipulating things.
Doc, we'll leave it here for now. I'm afraid that's all time will allow. Dr. Charles Rekubrovic, Chief Policy Analyst for the Ghana Institute of Public Policy Options. And we also spoke with Emmanuel J, Business News Editor here at Joy News. When we come back, we'll come back with some sports news. Don't go away.